artillery. Artillery is split into three major components. As you can see, you have the actual, well, technically it's four. You have the actual field artillery, and this is a tree that goes only up to 1943. So you have the actual field artillery, which is the cannons. Then you have some bonuses. Then in 1939 you have a new improved cannons, 15. So this is 10.5 centimeters. This is 15 centimeters. And in 1942 you get the 15 centimeter Cannone 18, which is the best artillery that is available to you in the game. Artillery in the sense of firing a ballistic projectile up in the air and into the enemy. Additionally, you have two more variants of cannons, which is the anti-air, the flak gun, 2 centimeters, the flak 30, the flak veering 38, and also in 1943 the best one, the 8.8 centimeters flak 41. We also have the anti-tank. The anti-tank basically has hard attack and piercing. It's designed to take out tanks. Basically, the way it works is as follows. A division is considered armored if the value of that armor is higher than the value of the piercing of the division that's attacking it. So this is why this piercing here is important. So basically, level 1 1936 anti-tank will pierce without a problem. Now these are also ponderated through a certain formula. We're going to discuss that later on. There's a bit of a difference. This is the armor of a battalion of Panzerkampfwagen, but we're actually discussing, when we're discussing in the battle, we're talking about the division overall armor and the division overall piercing. These are calculated through some certain laws of averages. We are going to discuss them when we hit the division designer. But for now, what's important is to understand that 1936 light tanks only have 15 armor, which means that they can be pierced every day of the week, twice on Sundays, maybe even 3 times on Sundays, by the 1936 anti-tank gun. The 1939 Panzer has 60 armor. It can also be pierced. This has 70 armor. It can also be pierced by the 75 piercing of this gun. Basically, the first tank that cannot be pierced, so this one, 30 armor, surely can be pierced by the 1936 guns, by the 1936 anti-tank, is the Panzer 4, the 1941 medium tank. But by 1941 we have the 1940 gun, which gives you the 1940 anti-tank gun, which gives you 88 piercing. Also, this gives you a 20% bonus to piercing. So the 1936 gun with 75 piercing, if you research this static technology in 1939, you will get a 20% bonus on piercing, which, let me see if I can do the math quickly in my head, is another oh bloody hell, is another 15, is it? Yes, it's another 15 piercing on top of this. So this gun with this bonus can get to 90 piercing, which again is better than the 80 piercing of the 1941 guns, of the 1941 mediums, but I do not think it's better than the 110 armor of the 1941 heavy tanks. However, when you research this, you get 88 piercing, but you also have to remember this bonus is still active. So these guns aren't just piercing at 88, but they're actually piercing at 88 plus 20% of that, which is just going to be too hard for me to calculate right now. But it's at least another 15, maybe 20, so it's 108. So maybe you still can't pierce those tanks, but surely once you get another 10% bonus on your piercing, which is basically another 8, so that would be a 26 plus 8. The 8 would be 108 plus 6 would be 114 piercing, which is just enough to pierce the 110 armor of the heavy tank. So basically in the armor versus tank versus anti-tank battle, you can always guarantee that the anti-tank will win. So if you keep your anti-tank up to date, you will always be able to pierce the opposing division. So basically what this means is that the division loses its armored status, which means it is more likely to take damage. What the armor does, I think it will double, if I remember correctly, in a battle, it will double the defensive stats of a unit, which makes it less likely to take any damage in the battle. But what you gain by piercing it, so basically the armor gives you a 100% defensive bonus to all of your defensive stats. And what you manage to do when you pierce the unit, when you have more piercing than whatever the division armor is, you literally have negated 100% of the defense. So you are literally cutting the defensive stats in half. Now, in 1940, you will be able to build rocket artillery, which when you compare it with the normal artillery, it just gives you less defense but more breakthrough. We're going to discuss what the difference between the two really is, and it gives you the same amount of soft attack. It's actually less soft attack because this 30 it doesn't take into consideration the 10% bonus from here, and also in 1940 you get another 10% bonus down here for soft attack. However, overall, rocket artillery gets 15% bonus to soft attack in its during its lifetime, right? In 41 and 42. Also in 43 you get the new type of artillery, of rocket artillery, which already has a base soft attack that's higher than the 34 of this, but with the bonuses, the regular artillery might still be pulling ahead. However, you're thinking, okay, so there's nothing here, why would I invest in artillery? Well, in the engineering part, so in 1943 you can research experimental rockets, and then rocket engines give you additional 5% bonuses to artillery soft attack in 1944, 1945 and 1946. So you have an additional 15% bonus to the rocket artillery soft attack that is available to you after 1944. And that's why when you look at the production costs, the rocket artillery is more tungsten intensive than steel intensive as the regular artillery is. But at the end, so after 1943, it will deliver more soft attack for you. Now, we've been talking about soft attack and hard attack for a while. This is basically if you want to think about it, soft attack is against squishy targets like human flesh, so an infantry will receive soft attack damage against it, while tanks and mechanized, for instance, will receive more hard attack, and this is determined by the percentage of hardness that is described here. So if you're looking at the Panzer V, the Panther has 90 hardness, but this gets again distributed and calculated on the division level. So even though so if you were to only have panzers in the division, then you would have 90 hardness, which means that it will take 90% damage from the soft attack, from the hard attack, and 10% damage from the soft attack. But the actual division will not only contain panzers, it will also contain some other stuff, so the hardness coefficient will be much lower. This is why the soft attack versus hard attack is important. So the soft attack will deal, so you will deal 38 soft attack damage, while only 1 hard attack damage, while the gun is dealing 34 soft attack and 22 hard attack. So artillery is aiming at squishy targets, while this gun is dealing very little soft attack, this anti-tank gun, but it's dealing much bigger hard attack, to the point where you have 30 hard attack with the 1943 anti-tank. Next item is the land doctrine. The land doctrine is just a collection of bonuses for your units, and it's split into 4 types of schools that are exclusive: mobile warfare doctrine, superior firepower doctrine, grand battle plan doctrine, and mass assault doctrine. Now, grand battle plan doctrine has been somewhat nerfed and not useful, which is a shame, because pretty much all the European allies come out of grand battle plan doctrine, and you are going to have to spend some political power to, actually you're going to have to spend some research time to switch your doctrine out to one of these other ones that are more useful. Mobile warfare doctrine is a doctrine that is centered around speed, around organization for your infantry units or your trucks, around tanks. It gives a lot of bonuses to tanks and trucks. It also gives some bonuses to mechanized, and depending on which, so you can see here, these are exclusionary, so you can choose to go down the blitzkrieg side or the mobile infantry side. This gives you a lot of bonuses to the infantry, whether it be mobile or on foot. As you can see here, all infantry receive a straight out bonus, while this side gives more bonuses to tanks. We're going to discuss what these are later on. And then here you have another choice between modern blitzkrieg and desperate defense. Modern blitzkrieg is more bonuses to tanks, a tactic, and some recovery rate bonuses and so on. So these you get just more bonuses piled on tanks, while desperate defense is something to turn to if you discover that you are losing the war, and it just gives you recruitable population bonuses and some extra effect on the partisans. So basically, this only works if the enemy has already started conquering your territory. Now, frankly, this is a little bit underwhelming. It doesn't really feel like it belongs into the mobile warfare doctrine tree, but it's sort of meant as a reflection of what happened to Germany as they were losing the war. So originally they started out with good tanks and good organization and so on, and then they were pushed back to the point where they basically started mobilizing everyone. The pictures of the 16-year-old kids that were scraped together to ensure the defense, the defense of Berlin, is a very haunting image. So this is the mobile warfare doctrine. We're already locked into it. We've already started. Technically, we could choose to change it if we want to, but we would have to essentially research an extra doctrine slot. So each of these technologies give out some bonuses, and you get to research them all the time. They are always in time, so if you're ever finding yourself in a position where you don't know what to research because everything that you wanted to research you've already done and everything else is too far ahead of time, you can always turn to research doctrines, because doctrines are always in time. Now, just to take a quick look at the other two doctrines, superior firepower is basically centered around artillery and infantry with some bonuses for tanks. You have a choice here between dispersed support and integrated support. I've ran the numbers. You never ever pick dispersed support. You always pick integrated support. So I've ran the numbers with the optimized meta division configuration. This is not a choice as things stand right now. This is never ever advantageous in under any circumstances, unfortunately. This is due to some nerfs that Paradox has done. We're not going to get into that. So basically what I'm saying is the values that were available here have been tinkered with by Paradox in order to better balance the game, but what they managed to do in others is to completely destroy the efficacy of Grand Battle Plan Doctrine and to make this choice into a non-choice anymore. Here you sort of have a choice. You can go between air-land battle and shock and awe. The difference is here, this gives you a bonus to air superiority. If you go down this path gives you just more damage all around. So this is a good doctrine for winning the war if you have the industrial base. So tactic number 2 for winning the land war. Mass assault doctrine is something that the Soviets are usually locked into. So out of all the nations, all the major nations, I think the Americans are locked into the superior firepower doctrine. All the European allies are locked into the Grand Battle Plan doctrine, which is unfortunate because it's not really that useful anymore. It used to be much more useful, but it's been nerfed to the point where you can just go to superior firepower. Mass assault doctrine, however, is the Soviet doctrine. This is based on reduction of supply consumption. This is based on giving you some organization to your infantry, giving you some organization to your tanks, but it's basically, this is the bread and butter of it. So, and it doesn't matter which side you go down, you get to this place as fast from both of them. You get a bonus, you get this combat width of -4, which means of -4 for the infantry division, which means that your infantry divisions can get bigger without getting bigger, which means basically you will put more men into your infantry divisions, which will have the result of increasing all the defensive stats of your infantry, but without actually taking up more space. So it's basically sort of like a stacking ability. And the other type of the other place where it's getting something interesting is here again on the right side. You get a 5% extra recruitable population, which, if you remember, you get +2 here, +3 here. This is but it's a useless. This is the useless part of the doctrine for mobile warfare. Over here in both versions, so here you get it at this technology, you get 5% extra recruitable population, and on this variant you get wait a second, where is it? It turns out over here you don't get it. So basically you go down this path of the doctrine if you need more recruitable population, you go down this path of the doctrine if you have enough recruitable population, and this path gives you more bonuses to tanks in the long run. So basically, this side is useful for smaller nations that might want to squeeze out more of an army, while the Soviets have a huge army composition. Have a huge they have a huge recruitable population manpower pool. They can go down this side of the focus tree.